Good morning, everybody. My name is Catherine Desforges. I'm the director of the Independent Cinema Office. I'd like to welcome you to this seminar. Since 2011, we at the ICO have been running the Developing Your Film Festival program. We've trained more than 250 people from 53 countries and 197 film festivals. The course offers a unique opportunity for film festival professionals to consider their long-term strategic vision, meet their peers, and respond to a constantly changing landscape. We'll be launching registrations for our next iteration of this in January 2021, so do join our mailing list if you're interested in registering for that. This session today is part of our ongoing seminar sessions for alumni and other industry professionals, and we're delighted to be part of the Black Knights industry programme in Tallinn. So we'd like to extend a really warm welcome to all the delegates from Tallinn joining us today, and also to all the alumni from the course. In the past year, we've seen the film festival sector do incredible and amazing work in response to the challenges of a global pandemic. We've seen festivals go online at a few weeks' notice. Some deliver hybrid events, a lot of innovative approaches in terms of delivering a successful market in lockdown, amongst many other things. Now we're looking forward to next year, thinking about what we should return to and what to keep from this strange and challenging time. So how can festivals build a sustainable business model if they are looking at reduced capacity and online models of delivery? What do they need to deliver for filmmakers, for sales agents, and for audiences? And we're going to look at some of these questions today. So a few housekeeping things. If you have questions, we want this seminar to be as engaging and discursive as possible, because we probably all had it way enough of Zoom by now. So please do put your questions in the Q&A chat box at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to go to questions quite quickly from the audience. We also have closed captioning today for this session. If you'd like to turn them off, they're at the bottom of your screen, but we have them. We're really delighted to have captioners to help us make this accessible to as many people as possible. And we are also recording this session, so you will be able to catch up with it later if you can't stay for the whole time. We're hoping to run for about an hour today, so that's how long we'll be with you. So I'm delighted that all our panel could join us today. It's great, can I just say, it's fabulous to have an all-female panel. Shouldn't be unusual, but it's unusual enough still for me to notice. So thank you very much to everybody for joining us. So we have Giulia, who's joining us from the Venice Biennale. We have Natalie from Metro International, and we have Marija from Films. So thank you very much to everybody. I've asked each of our panel just to talk briefly for us this morning, it's morning for me and afternoon for you, for 5 minutes, about one thing that changed for them during the pandemic in terms of their work that they would like to keep going forward. So I am going to go to Giulia first, it's 6 a.m. in New York, but you look fabulous.
Yes, it is. Yes, and I apologize for the bad lighting, but it's pitch dark outside, so I haven't had time to do anything better than this lamp in my face. So yes, well, as you probably know, Venice is one of the few ones that is fortunate enough to be able to have an in-person festival for most part. So there were changes, but our core remained the same because we were able to have real screenings, and everything was projected on a big screen, and both the press and the audience had a chance to see it. But there were differences from other years, and I would like to start from the selection process, because this was a difference that worried me very much at the beginning, and that turned out to be actually a positive change. When we were really at the beginning of the selection process, it was when Italy went into lockdown, and I was very concerned. I live in New York. Most of my colleagues of the main selection committee are in Italy. And usually in that part of the year, they meet in Rome and they see films together in Rome. They schedule sessions, and I see things by myself, either on links or in our internal server. This year they couldn't convene. So they were all at home individually watching films. And as someone that also is a foreign correspondent for the festival for the American for the American film, I was worried because I thought the pandemic is going to affect them. They're going to be thinking about something else. They're at home. They're distracted. How can the films are not going to be watched? And it was quite the opposite, actually. This individual experience, and probably the lockdown itself stimulated a much higher level of conversation. So we all watched the film by ourselves, but when we got together, it was much more interesting. And I think that the selection benefited from that extra degree of concentration that we had to invest in the film by being responsible just for ourselves. You know, when you see in a group, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I like it too, you know, and the discussion ends very quickly. So this was kind of a fertile time for us to talk about the films. And I really like that. And I think my colleagues like that too. And I believe it's something that it might be a good thing to maintain. Then of course we didn't really know what was going on. We didn't know if we could have a festival, you know, so we kept trying to work as if until the very last minute. And that's also something that in one way kept us, you know, on our feet rather, because you just didn't know, you know, it was very frustrating on one end because you were watching films and then the distributor or the sales agent would say, oh, I'm not sure, maybe I wait until 2021, you know. So there was a lot of, you know, hit and miss just simply because it was, the industry was in a state where everything was so vague and decisions were very, very hard. But at the same time, it kept us very alert and very curious, you know. And at the end, I think we did a program that I'm very proud of, and it was a very good program. But it was a lot of creative solutions, you know, just to put the selection together. In practical terms, in terms of the festival itself, the festival itself, our digital, the use of digital was relatively small. I mean, except for the VR section that was entirely online, and it was actually a big success. I was checking the numbers the other day, but I think it quadrupled the you know, the amount of people that had access to the VR program the year before. With the exception of that, everything was in person. But the one thing that we were at the beginning, because we never did it, was pre-assignment of the seats, which was necessary because we were operating at a 50% capacity, and social distancing required, you know, you can't just sit wherever you want. You needed to have your seat. And journalists were grumbling at the beginning. They're not used to it. They like to go in and out. You know, it was an extra effort, seemed an extra for the audience. And instead, it turned out to be something that everybody loved because they didn't have to go to stand in line too early. They knew exactly where they were going to be, and they could actually see more movies by not having to worry if they were to make it into the next screening or not, because they had a seat. And that was also adopted in the press conferences, you know. So I imagine, I mean, I wasn't privy to any on a specific discussion on the pre-assigned seat, but I imagine that from a practical standpoint, that was something very, very good. And the other thing was to creatively use, because some of the talent, especially from the United States, could not attend, to use, you know, introduce Zoom in press conferences, you know, and so we had just Zoom, you know, Zoom only press conferences, hybrid, which worked fairly well, you know. It was really nicely done by our tech team, and then we had just in-person press conferences. So that's something that it's a good opportunity to have, although, you know, a festival like Venice, and like most festivals, thrives from having the filmmakers in person there, you know, and we also have this dimension that has sort of, you know, a spectacular dimension with red carpet and, you know, and that, and that, you know, we would always want to try as much as possible to have the talent coming to the festival. It creates a sense of, you know, of family. And this is not something, you know, the last thing I would think about positive thing, which it's more like a feeling, you know, it was how much we felt that because we were the first to go on, and how the support from everyone, you know, the industry, the press. I mean, just from even from away, you know, the messages we got. We are so happy you can make it happen. You know, the festivals are rivalries. You know, we're always competing with each other. There is always, and this year it really felt that it was such a desire for each of the festivals to be able to go through. You know, I remember the morning where I think it was morning, where I read that, or maybe Julie texted me, I forgot. But anyway, the news came out that Telluride could not go, you know, happen. And I know they were almost closing the programming. They were very ahead in the program, you know, so they were really. It was like us. We were working as if, and then all of a sudden, no festival. It was very heartbreaking because you know the work and the time that you have invested, especially in a situation as difficult as this one. So that kind of virtual community, which again had nothing to do with tech or it's nice to recreate, where you feel that there is a collective desire for things to work and for the films to be seen, you know. It was a very difficult, but it was also very, very interesting experience from all kind of point of views.
Thank you. It's so interesting. I love, you know, there's lots of things that you said there that would be great to pick up on when we get into our discussion. Natalie, we've heard about sales agents, you know, maybe saying yes, no, maybe like 2022. I was wondering if we could just hear from you about one thing that changed for you that you would like to keep that in terms of your work.
Yes, well, I've missed festivals beyond belief, and actually what has struck me in the last year is how essential they actually are to independent film for those platforms and the whole essence of a film festival. So the beginning of this year, having left Berlin, which was the last festival I went to, and then sort of felt like we were on the edge of a chasm when we were in lockdown, and the whole industry sort of felt like it was grinding to a halt, with cinemas closing and what buyers and distributors are going to do for their business, how everything's going to move forward. And my life for the last 30 years has been punctuated by traveling to film festivals and markets. And that's a strategic part of the launch of every film that we have. So that's what I've done. I've gone to, you know, I start off in Berlin. It might be Sundance if we have a film in Sundance. We go to Cannes, we go to Toronto. We have to go to the AFM, which is a huge pure market. And in between, there are other festivals, be it Venice or Rome or Karlovy Vary or Edinburgh. So we're traveling all the time. And, you know, the community and the interaction with each other is essential to business. And we are the business side of this. So when that stopped, I felt quite panic-stricken, actually. And then Cannes made mumblings about a virtual festival, and I thought that was just, how the hell is that going to work? But actually its innovation was fantastic, and I think all of the festivals that have tried to adjust to a digital version are to be just so applauded. And you know, the actual market experience, it is not the same, it can't be the same, but we've all had to find a sort of creativity to look at the films we have, how we're going to present them, how we're going to continue business. And I think that we were able to carry on. And at the beginning of the year, that felt almost impossible. And the ability to adapt so quickly has been fantastic. So we have sold our films, we have seen our distributors. You know, the one thing that has stalled is production. And there's nothing we can physically do about that until things start opening. And of course, they have started opening. But I think that what this did, it gave us a structure, something to focus towards for all the buyers who were looking for content just to keep their pipelines going, but also want to still buy films to release in cinemas next year. So all of that, the possibility of everything moving ahead was something that was a real lifeline, and has kept our businesses alive so far. And the other thing that we probably wouldn't have done in the same way is to also, as a company, adapt digitally, and think about some films aren't festival films, so they don't have the opportunity to have that very essential platform because they're too commercial. They're not selected by festivals because they are a genre film or whatever it is. There isn't the right festival for them. And then we had to think, how do you introduce a finished film for the first time? Because not having it on the big screen as it was intended to be seen is a terrible thing to do to a film for the first time. But actually we were able to create, we had some money from the BFI to help us through this time, and we created our own digital platform where we could create something immersive with our artwork, our trailers, press. We could create sort of an event, a screening event for our distributors, where they could come in and see the film from wherever they were all over the world. And we could have it over 12 hours or 24 hours in real time, but it created a need and a desire for them to see the film for the first time. And that was really effective, actually, and something that I think we can use in the future. So I think that was really good. And I think the connectivity of our industry, I think we remained connected. And, you know, I normally go to the London Film Festival, and I was able to still participate in that festival and catch up with things that I didn't see, and Toronto as well. You know, it's not the same. It's not the same at all, but we were still all engaged. We were still connecting, and we were still able to move forward. And I think that has been fantastic. But I've got to say to you, I cannot wait until we can all be back together. I would love to have gone to Venice. One of my friends had 2 films selected, and I cannot tell you what it did for her business to be able to go to Venice and have her films platform there, and what that did for her. Just being able to engage with distributors again, it's an irreplaceable thing when we are such a community. So I've said too much. I will stop there because I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more, but that's my snapshot.
No, never too much. I mean, I think everybody, like so many of us, are just like, you know, we have to be in a cinema. You know, we want to be in a cinema. That's where films belong. But a lot of what you say about that kind of the way that the industry, you know, the way that festivals have really been missed, you know, that connectivity is really, really being missed. And it is just not the same, is it? It's just not the same watching something online. It's just not the same. Anyway. Marija, you are a producer, and there is production happening in Lithuania, I know. Just tell us a bit, and you have had a film, you did wait to launch a film in Lithuania when cinemas reopened, but can you just speak to us about one thing that changed for you that you would like to keep as part of what's happened this year?
Yes, so as to most of us, things really changed 180 degrees. Developing things moved to the meetings on the Zoom. Productions look more like hospitals because there is doctors running with checking temperature, doing COVID tests, and etc. Distributing films, again, with the closed cinemas, festivals going online is something different. But what I wanted to tell you about today is my recent film, Nova Lituania, which had international premiere in 2019 in Karlovy Vary, debut competition program. And how we managed to release it in Lithuania this year in 2020. Originally, we sort of planned to have a theatrical release in September 2019. But straight after Karlovy Vary, we received an invitation to screen this film in Vilnius Film Festival in the competition program, which is in spring 2021 in March. So we thought, okay, we do the national sort of premiere at Kino Pavasaris at Vilnius Film Festival, which has a very big impact to our local audiences. And then we launched it in the cinemas in April. It sounded like a great plan. So we postponed the national release to the April 2021. And then COVID came. And for us, the national release in cinemas is very important because we have a super engaged audience. We have 24% of the market, the national films in the cinemas. So our audience is very much engaged. They love Lithuanian films. They go to Lithuanian films and they really anticipate and look forward. So what we did, we actually, we had so many plans how to deal with that, but we thought, okay, we do the screening in Vilnius Film Festival, which moved online. We do this because we are in the competition. We want to benefit from the competition, and we did, as we got the prize. But we said, okay, we won't go online instead of the theatrical release. We have to be patient. We have to wait until the cinemas will open, because we really felt that, okay, this spring COVID wave will not last forever. It will be 2, 3, 4 months, and then we should have better times in summer. And we thought, why don't we go on this super risky and super crazy plan to do the release in summer? And I don't know about all the territories, but releasing a film in Lithuania in summertime is a disaster in normal times, because nobody goes to the cinema in summer, at least not to the black and white 4 to 3 squared films, which are difficult films, so to say. And we thought, after those 3 or 4 months of the lockdown, people will be missing socializing. They will be missing cinema. They all watched films on their laptops and TVs, but they will be missing this social event as going to the cinema. So we scheduled the release to be the first ones to open the cinemas in Lithuania. And the cinemas opened in June 22nd, I think, and we had our national premiere on June 25th. So basically we were opening the cinemas in Lithuania, and it was a Lithuanian film. It was a very anticipated film because we had so many good reviews from the festivals. We got prizes in the festivals. The film was really, really anticipated by the audience. And we had to really do so many adaptations in terms of all the restrictions that were still on. We could have 50% capacity in the cinemas only. People had to wear masks, and etc., etc. So our red carpet premiere was moved in front of the cinema so that we could all gather, because it was an open space and we could enjoy, you know, a glass of wine without wearing masks, which we had to wear when we went inside the mask. And we basically booked all the multiplex cinema with 10 screens, and we divided the whole crowd of 500 people in those 10 rooms to see the premiere night film, so that they could feel safe and have their own space for the social distancing. And it went really, really well, because after this, it was a very different kind of premiere. It was so many good word of mouth after this, that, you know, it's safe to go to the cinemas. The filmmakers, you know, did everything they could to make people feel safe, and that they could again enjoy watching films on a big screen. And we stayed in the cinemas for almost 8 weeks until the end of August. So it was really, really good success. We did almost 12,000 admissions, which for that kind of film in the post-COVID times, in summertime, was an amazing result. And this is something we even didn't expect to be so good, because you never know what you come when you come to the summer, because it was a wonderful weather. People were going crazy after this spring lockdown, and we couldn't prognose what will happen. We just said we take the risk, and that's it. And it really moved us how Giulia mentioned this, how people were supportive, because again, Venice was the first festival to do it. Nobody knew how it will be, what will be the feeling, how will the audience share the emotions, but we really, really felt the support from the industry, from the audience, from the press, from all the people who watched the film. They were super sharing their thoughts, good thoughts, critics, everything they wanted. But we felt such a big influence from all around us, and it really, I think, it had a big impact to where we found ourselves at the end of August with almost 12,000 admissions. And we just now got a nomination to be Lithuanian representative for Oscars with this film. Last week we had national awards, so we got 6 main awards for this film. So basically all this, what happened to us in the 2020 was super, let's say, positive in terms of how bad it could turn. So I am a positive person, but in this situation, I am super positive because we really tried to get most of this situation, and I think we succeeded. That's my story.
It's such a great story, though, because all of us who work in this sector, in this industry, we know that what a transformative power cinema has on people's lives. But that story is such, as an illustration of that, isn't it? It's like everybody coming out of lockdown. It's like a country, and they really embrace your film, because in that sense, it's a film from that country, and it's about the people, and it's about community, and it's about all of those people coming together. And it's you just kind of think, well, that's what cinema can do. That's what film festivals can do. We've got quite a lot of questions, actually, so I might just go straight to questions, if that's all right, everybody. Giulia, we've got one that's for you. You might, I don't know whether you want to answer all of it, but I'll ask it because it's been asked. So somebody has asked you, how did the official partner and other sponsors react to the reduced benefits that you were able to give them in Venice? Did you have to compensate them? Did it make a difference in terms of people's financial contribution? I guess this is useful for other festivals to know how to navigate that relationship with sponsors.
That is really not my turf. That I can't fully answer in the specifics, but I do know that all of our partners were there. And that was great to do. I don't know if the margins were the same as usual. I'm sure everyone was trying to be responsible and but I don't believe we had any major defections, and I think they kind of embraced the spirit, and we embraced what they were able to offer. I think that's, but again, that's really, the sponsorship is not my thing, but I don't believe we lost any major thing due to the pandemic. It might be figures that were different, but it was not, there were, of course, the festival had to invest a lot into the testing, the screenings, and we also had to create 2 new outdoor screening spaces for the general audience. So so there was, there were extra expenses than we would normally have had, and I'm sure that altered the the budget situation. But I don't think there were any major that we lost partnerships altogether. I don't believe.
I know. And I was going to say, if anything, you'd attract new partnerships, wouldn't you? Because it was such a kind of success in the middle of a pandemic.
It was interesting because one of the problems that we were encountering during the selection, and which is an understandable problem, but it was incredibly frustrating for someone like me that's supposed to go, also besides choosing, they're supposed to go and get the films, was this idea that it was not a good idea to have the festival. Maybe we should just not do it because we were putting people at risk, that thing. a word that I heard a lot was optics. You know, it's not good optics to show up at a film festival. So, you know, this was very, very sensitive topic, especially in the United States, because it had political undertones that were, you know, complicated by political undertones. And so it was very, you know, it was daunting to do it. And then I think the Biennale pulled off such an extraordinary feat to do it safe, to still do it so that it felt like it was pleasant. It wasn't like some kind of a military operation, although, you know, it had all the complexities of a military operation, but you never felt that anything was pushed on you. It just felt you were protected. And that combined with the sense of being able to be together again. I mean, I will never remember opening night because we were looking at each other, you know, and it's a big room. I think it's 1,300 seats and it was 50%, but it just felt huge to be able to be there, and such an emotion. So I think that the people actually ended up being happy to be there and to share the way we did it. And I was complimented, you know, some of the people that didn't give us the films because they were concerned about optics of having an in-person festival. After the festival, they kind of, I don't know if they regret they didn't give us the film, but they certainly were incredibly appreciative of the way we handled it.
Brilliant. Natalie, may I ask you, there's a question about industry discussions and meetings moving online to kind of closed groups and industry sessions. Does that make it harder for new people to kind of engage with the sector, do you think? Or if it does, how can we open things up? How can you do that? You know, that you can't be on a market where you're walking up and down and you can just talk to somebody.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that is, I mean, as we've said, the virtual markets have been great just for continuing and to engaging with the relationships that you've got with distributors and carrying on conversations that you have in between the markets. What is missed so much is being amongst a community. The conversations that I have just being in a market are countless. I can't even tell you how many people I speak to in one day. And that might be just crossing a lobby, you know, going into a bar, going, you know, being at a screening after catching up with people. I mean, there's such an essential community. And what is missed so much at a festival or in a market is people talking to each other about film and about a new filmmaker and about, you know, that is what creates essential buzz about a film. And it's such an important thing for what I do, selling a film. Doing everything online, the buyers aren't talking to each other anymore. They're not chatting and finding out about things unless they pick up the phone and talk to each other. So it's a very limited resource to do everything online. It's fantastically innovative and thank God for it, but that cannot be the way we move ahead. You have to have the combination of physically being there to talk to each other. Otherwise, small films will get totally lost. They won't have the chance to have that platform and breathe and grow and people to discover them. So yeah, I think the Zoom limits us enormously.
Okay, thank you. Marija, how can small-scale independent films benefit from the digital transformations after this COVID period, do you think?
Really hard to say in general, you know, every film is a different case, but I think what, for example, we also did now with the same film, Nova Lituania, we sold it to Mubi and we went online from beginning of November. So basically after 1 year run at the festivals and already having a national release, we saw that, you know, for us, it became almost impossible to do some sales and to get theatrical release elsewhere, because there are so many films, because everybody is super reserved, and for many other reasons. So after we received this proposal, we had no doubt that we have to go online already with that film. And we took this proposal and we released it. And again, we received a second wave of interest and buzz about the film, new reviews and new emails asking something about the film, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's again, you have to see what your own film needs are. What do you want to do with that film? And with that director, at the moment, I'm developing a new film. So we need the, the visibility. We need to finance a second film. So we thought, okay, we have to let it go. It's time to move it to the online VOD platform, and we did it. So I don't want to speak in general for all independent films. I just think you have to see, where do you want to go with that, if you have another project with the same filmmaker or not, and what are your fundamental goals in general in that position.
Yeah. And we've got a question for all of you, which is a sort of really topical one, actually. So based on your experiences of working in, with and around film festivals during COVID, what advice would you give to someone working towards the creation of a new hybrid film festival? So I think this is a question for a lot of film festivals in the short term at the moment. They're all looking at the kind of hybrid model. So what advice would you have? So Giulia, do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, that's a difficult one, because we really did in person, and so I would, my suggestion would be, I'm thinking, let's talk about a film festival. It was a hybrid that I kind of witnessed, and is New York. New York had to be very creative, like at the very last minute, because they didn't know if they have theaters, and they didn't know until the last minute that they couldn't use them. So they did drive-in. So that they did a combination of drive-in screening and and online. And I heard the other day, we were talking to its director, Eugene Hernandez, and he said they were very, very happy, because it allowed them to reach an audience that went way beyond New York. And normally the festival is very regional, so that's kind of a positive experience. For Venice, I would, from my perspective, vis-a-vis Venice, I would suggest try to keep the screenings in person as much as possible, and use the virtual experience for press activities, but even for journalists, if possible at all, it makes a big difference to see a movie in a screening room with others. And it's what Natalie was talking before, because there is a vibe, there is a way that a film is perceived differently. And I think from a sales standpoint, and also from a critic standpoint, it makes a big difference to be able to see it in person. So if there is an opportunity, my advice would be, for the screening per se, just to keep that integrity and have it for real. And then the rest you can do from afar. It's not a big deal. And the technology, luckily, it's allowing us to do that. And I think that, hearing Natalie and other sales, the market can work very well, on virtual, can work well more than the viewing experience itself for a festival, because it's the community part that creates the environment for films, to be launched, to be discussed, to be discovered, to find their place in the world.
Natalie, do you want to come in on that?
I totally agree with Giulia. I think that the hybrid model is actually, I think the real advantage is its inclusivity, because it opens itself up for more people in a way. But as Giulia says, the live screening experience in the cinema is something that you just can't lose. And you can do, so for London Film Festival, I normally go to lots and lots of screenings in London, but obviously there was a lockdown, but they did have actual screenings in London, but my husband's high risk, so I can't, and I live out of London, I live about 40 miles away. But my local cinema, and it's a tiny little art house, privately owned cinema, he was streaming some of the films live, and it was 50% capacity. We had to wear masks, but we could buy a glass of wine in reception, come in, sit in our seats separated from everybody in a really safe way, watch films. I just watched anything and everything that was on. And the joy of being in the cinema with an audience, and everyone was so engaged, and then the credits come up and you sit and you watch all the credits, and then they had a Q&A and we watched the Q&A, and that was done remotely. And I just thought, that is so brilliant, because we're able to participate. And I think the future of that, I really hope that film festivals will allow, because they're in a specific city, unless you're there and able to buy tickets and be there, I think you can really open up your audiences and allow people to experience the festival and the discovery of new films from local cinema and also online, because I could also watch things online if I wanted to. There was a brief window one day to watch one film at that time. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. And it just feels that there's lots of potential for more people to actually participate in the festival experience, which if you're buying your accreditation, it's quite a small select group of us. If you think about it, I like the democratization of a festival through the hybrid model.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, actually. Marija, what advice do you have for people creating hybrid models from your perspective as a producer?
I would like to add to what Giulia and to what Natalie said, that creating this community in a hybrid way is also very important to the filmmakers, because we had so many different experiences with the festivals online where we screened our own films, because sometimes we just had the fact that our film is screened somewhere and that's it. We also had online Q&As. We had some other festivals even made online drinks for the filmmakers who are in the competition. So sometimes you feel so stupid to join those drinks online with your own glass from your own kitchen. But in the end, those conversations kick off, and sometimes you move to the breakout rooms with someone else, and then you meet some other people. You meet someone you know from before, and then they put you in contact with someone else. So in the end, it really, really at least helps to fill that void, which is after moving everything online. So I would highly recommend to try to involve the audience and the filmmakers to this even online community as much as they can with any kind of activities they can think of.
I love that. There's always that moment, isn't there, where you're there by yourself, your drink.
I mean, I even had dances on Zoom.
Did you?
Yes, there was a dance. I mean, at first everybody felt super stupid because there was one person putting random music, and then everybody starts dancing. But in the end, it was quite fun. I mean,
oh, that's nice. That's really nice. You have karaoke, festival karaoke, and then it would all be out of time. No. Right, I've got a question for Natalie and Marija. This is a classic film festival question, actually. How do you feel about most festivals having to opt for online screenings? Were you hesitant about providing your films for streaming, for like VOD or not? And would you change your premiering strategies in terms of national premieres and alternative distribution, do you think? Or is it back to, it depends on the film? And do you want to come in on this, Natalie? How did you feel when people to put your films online?
I think that we need festivals so badly, and actually I've got 2 new completed films, and so in lockdown actually our time was well used, because we were able to be part of the post-production process quite forensically, and the films have turned out well. But they both need film festivals so much, because they have a core audience, but it's not they're not big, broad commercial films. And the festivals as part of our strategy to sell the film and show it for the first time. I don't want actually to show it at the AFM in a virtual market where we had to build our screening platform. But those two films are special, and they've been made for the big screen, and they need to be seen from that platform that the festival provides, where an audience gets to see it, they respond to it, where the critics see it. I mean, obviously it helps if the film is favorably reviewed, but you need those reviews so much to be able to persuade distributors that this is something that they should be looking at to acquire. Then there's also the buzz of people discovering the film, talking about it. The buyers talk to each other. That's, you know, suddenly someone's spoken to someone in Scandinavia, and that Scandinavian distributor comes in to say, you know, they want to talk about it. There's a sort of chain reaction that is essential, and without any festival interaction and without any festivals to launch from, it would be actually catastrophic for the films. So I would say it wouldn't. Now looking at these two films, I'm waiting to hear from Sundance, I'm waiting to hear from Berlin, and I will be absolutely devastated if our films aren't selected, because they really, really need those platforms. And whether it's virtual, whether we're there, I would go if I can, to commune and to engage with the filmmakers. It's a whole collective experience that it's essential to our sales strategy, actually.
Okay, thanks. Marija, do you have a view on that?
My experience was that with Nova Lituania, that we had a physical world premiere at Karlovy Vary, and then for 6 more months we had physical screenings at the film festivals, physical meetings with the audience. So when in March everything moved online, we said yes to all the film festivals that were offered us online, of course, without any hesitation, because we understand that was the new reality, and what else could we do? Except what I've mentioned before, that we said no to the theatrical, to going online instead of national theatrical release, because this is very important for us, for our next projects, to have a really physical theatrical release in our country, and because our audience is so much engaged into Lithuanian films. So we couldn't think of going online with that one. But the festivals, we've even felt that we need to support them, because they had no other chance than going online. And we think that this is, again, another way of meeting with the audiences in their countries, though it's not so nice to screen it on a Vimeo screen. But I think it was important to stay together and to wait until this ends together.
Oh, it's so nice. It's like the community. Giulia, I'm going to ask you a quick festival-y question, which is just like, do you think it is better for online festivals to charge per screening, or to have a card with a number of screenings? So that's a really specific question. I
have no idea what to suggest. I mean, you know, I think in general, to offer some kind of a one pass price is better than, you know, I just think it's good to have both options, and you know, the pass, like a comprehensive pass, it just stimulates people to watch more, you know. But I think it's also good to be able to offer an individual ticket. So I think the way they would be in real life, you know, you can buy an all access card, or you can just choose and pick, because there's just one movie that you want to pursue. And
okay, I've got another kind of festival kind of question, specific festival kind of question for you as well, which is, what's a good way to distinguish your festival from others when everyone is selecting films from the same pool, due to sort of normal festival dates changing and kind of film dates changing? Although I guess that's like usual, isn't it? Like, how would you distinguish your festival normally?
It's kind of the same. I mean, this year there were less film, because, you know, and just in a sense that a lot of the films were not finished, and so they couldn't be finished because they couldn't complete post, and so we were looking more at the same, but because it's a year-round business, you always have whatever is available or finish or in your time frame, and what is also coming is in the pipeline for the time frame where your festival is held. What made it really complicated this year, as I was saying, is that release dates kept changing, and so it was very difficult for both filmmakers, producer, and sales agent to commit to a festival screening, because the kind of investment, especially a festival like Venice, where which is expensive, commit all that investment and thinking that your film would open a year later, and then you spend all that money for press and for advertising, and then your premiere is forgotten because so much is happening in those 12 months. It was a difficult decision. But other than that, Venice is festival like Venice, they're not thematic, it's very specific. It's world premieres is what we do, and so I think that they're well known for that, for being the big ones, and I like to think that what makes the festival is the film we choose every year. It's the identity of the festival comes from the product that we like and we invite.
Thank you. Natalie and Marija, someone's asked you if your expectation regarding audiences and kind of fees for when you place your films in a festival have changed as a result. I mean, this is a kind of, I guess it's like an obvious question. It's had to change, but I don't know if there's anything that you kind of want to say about that. So I think it's from a festival saying, have your expectations around what someone might pay you to show your film, or, or what you would expect from them, like in the past, you might have thought, how many, what size of auditorium, what's the kind of audience numbers, or is it still just back to what about the film and where the best place is for it to go?
Yeah, for us, the festivals that we select are strategic, because not every festival will be necessarily helpful for our sales strategy. So, you're looking at Venice, Cannes, Berlin, Toronto. There are certain key festivals, they're quite a limited number, that have that sort of prestige that you go there, the laurels of that festival on your film, it really elevates it. And that is something that is essential for us to be able to successfully sell the film, hopefully. Smaller festivals, or festivals which are more local and work brilliantly in their own territory, while we do have a festival strategy where we will submit the film to those territories or to those festivals in those countries, it's because we haven't sold the film in that territory. Ideally, you want a distributor on board to take advantage of the festival and use that festival in their strategy. I hope I'm answering the question correctly, but if we're approached by a festival that isn't part of our strategy, we then often say, look, we have no problem with the film participating there, and we'll charge them a fee. And it's not a big fee, but it has to be some kind of fee, because obviously we're taking care of it. There's administrative costs involved. Yeah. That hasn't really changed, I don't think, but it might do. We haven't really got to that point yet with the films we currently have on our slate. So the film festivals for a sales company are a part of our sales strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's helpful. Both actually, Marija and Natalie, somebody's asked, would you prefer, if somebody asked you to put your film on a platform, would you prefer a kind of one-off screening, like a kind of premiere type, it's only happening once, or would you look at something where somebody said it's available for a number of days to stream?
We have so much happening online. I would say it's a better option to have it for a couple of days, because it's really, I know from my own experience, I can't engage to so many things going on online at the exact time, because I have to work from home. My kids are at the moment at home, and I need to help them with the homework or whatever. And I just can't do everything scheduled so strictly. So when someone goes to bed, I can do something extra, but then it has to be under my own schedule and not scheduled by someone else. So I would prefer to do it, for a couple of days, and then somebody watches when they can.
And then you're more likely to get more people to see the film.
Exactly.
What new skills do you think people need in this new world in the industry? Do you think, have the skills changed? Did you need to acquire skills across your teams, or do you think it's kind of mostly the same kind of skills, really? Giulia, do you want to answer that one first?
Well, Zoom skills for once, and I'm not I'm not very good at these things, and so yeah, a certain digital, but what I would say is flexibility, is just being able to compromise. What I like in particular about Venice this year was the fact that we were able to prove that you could do between the nothing and the 100%, we could figure out something. And I think that this was important, because it would have been not just as easy, but we could have just said we can't do it, that's it, see you next year. And I think the flexibility and the creativity that this thing has imposed on us has some positive dimension to it. So the thinking fast. I mean, one thing that I remember in June, Alberto saying to us, okay, we don't know if it's going to be 30% capacity. We don't know if it's going to be 50. We don't know if it's going to be 100, and so we have to work per those three possibilities. And so, for example, and then it turned out to be 50. So what we had to do, besides building those two, arenas, was to put the classic session in Bologna. So you have to take out completely one program and put it in a different festival to be able to accommodate everything else. So I mean, that kind of thing, it's what professionals are able to do, because you've done it for so many years. And so I would imagine for newcomers it's a little harder, but I think it's important, because we really don't know what's ahead. And also the industry is in a it will need time to get back completely, and I think the support and the internal communication and support is going to be very, very important, and being creative, and so that's what I see.
Natalie, what did you find? Do you think people, presumably building your own virtual platform, required some new skills?
Well, we had to think really quickly, because we had 3 films in post-production at the beginning of the year, and they were going to need to be screened to distributors because the investors want their money back. And so then the BFI had this fund that was available, and we had to apply for it. And it was specifically for how we can adapt our businesses. So we looked at this virtual screening platform, and I've got to say it's a brilliant tool, and it's something that we can now use. It's a really nice immersive world for a distributor to go into. I really hate because we have no control of how they watch it. But what we can do is we can actually see how long they've screened the film for, how many times they've dipped in. So sometimes you see a distributor has watched for 10 minutes, obviously the phone's rung, they've stopped, they've come back in 20 minutes later, watched 15 minutes. I mean, it makes you want to cry, because they haven't watched the film in an immersive way. But then because there's so many distractions. But equally, when we had a time-sensitive screening, we were able to pre-record an introduction by the filmmakers, which was really fun. And there was a music element, so we could have this sort of music element to it, just to make it an event and make it feel special. And we had about 250 distributors. Well, in a normal screening, when you're at a market and people are watching, they've got so many things to see, they've got so many films to screen, you can actually create something that isn't competing with loads of other things, and you can drive your distributor audience in and watch it in a captive way. And that was really, really effective, actually. So I have liked that side for a film that doesn't get into a festival, that does need a bit of a platform or a bit of an event around it. That's something that worked for us.
Brilliant. Thank you. Marija, do you have any, what new skills do producers need in this kind of new pandemic world, apart from like the, taking the temperatures and
I think we needed to use almost the same skills we always use, but at some higher level, which means very quick decisions, high risk, and then again what Giulia and Natalie mentioned, being creative, being open, being flexible. You always have to adjust and to change from plan A to B, C, and then think of D in advance. So it's basically what we used to do, but at some higher level than usual, I think.
We're almost out of time. This has been such a great conversation. Thank you, everyone. Can I finish by asking you all? Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling pessimistic about the industry? Are you feeling like, as we draw to the end of the year and we're in different lockdown situations in different countries, how are you feeling? Giulia, I'll go to you first. You've got a better result in your country at the moment, hopefully. It's positivity.
Yeah, I tend to be an optimist, so I feel optimistic. I mean, we're already working on 2021. I already, two filmmakers already sent me films. So there is energy and to go forward. Another thing that I'm cautiously optimistic is the future of art house cinemas, which is inherently tied into the in-person experience, and how fragile the situation might be right now. I think once the reopening, based on the joy of people going to the movies that I witnessed, in Venice, and I'm not just talking about the industry and the specialized audience. It was a general audience, because the outdoor screenings were sold out every night. So based on that, I think cinemas will be back. Maybe it will be less. Maybe it will be a combined model. This distribution, that's not for me to, I don't have a crystal ball for that, and it's not my field. But I am optimistic. And cinema is it's a way to talk about the world and what's going on. So I want to see the films that have come out of this, and whether by the constraints of the safety protocol, what comes out of this experience in terms of what the content, and I'm always optimistic.
Natalie, are you feeling optimistic or pessimistic?
I feel mostly optimistic, because that's my standpoint in the world, is always to look on the bright side. But I feel that independent film is in for a bit of a hiding. And I think that the streamers and the studios and the way that they cannibalize cast and talent is really creating quite a crisis in independent film. And that's the space that I occupy, and our business occupies. And I really, with the end of the pandemic coming, all these big studio level films, all the big tentpole films, the hamburger films, we're going to dominate screen space, and smaller films are going to have a much harder time being given a chance to find their audience. And art house cinema, independent cinema, is so important for the future of independent film. And in the UK, we don't really have art house films, art house cinemas in the same way, but there are lots of little independent places. Like I live in Sussex, there's a place called The Depot, which is a charity-owned cinema, and they curate art house films. They show I mean, it is the most wonderful space, and the food's really good as well. Become destination, actually, and that's the future of independent cinema, is that they become destinations, I think. So I really want independent film to survive and find its space amongst all of these huge monoliths and the streamers who are, you know, have a huge lion's share of the market. So I feel cautiously optimistic, let's put it that way.
I just feel like, are we all optimists, everyone that works in the film industry? Because we're all kind of...
Well, I think we have to be, otherwise how do we get up in the morning and do what we do?
So, the accountants maybe. Oh. Marija, are you optimistic, pessimistic?
No, I'm always optimistic. I think that's my nature, and it's really, really, it would be so hard to be a producer if you're pessimistic. Yeah. And in general, to work in the film industry as a pessimist, I think there's very little space for pessimists in this world of cinema. So even if the future is not as bright because of what Natalie said, I'm still staying positive, because I think we will adjust. We will adjust, and we will find our own way. As you said, we will find our own destinations. It will be different. It will be the new reality, but yeah, there's nothing the same all the time. All the time we have to change, and it's fine, and we'll do it. So I'm optimistic.
Oh, this is a really nice way to finish. So thank you very much, ladies, for joining today. It's been really, really fantastic to have you and have this conversation. Thanks to our audience. I'm really sorry to those of you. We had loads of questions. Most of those questions were coming in from the audience, not from me. So thank you so much to everybody here today for being really, really engaged. It's been really nice. And I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. As I said, we're launching our Developing Your Film Festival course. It is coming back. Who knows if it'll be hybrid or virtual, or these are things that we're still kind of deciding, but we're going to launch registration in January. So do get on our mailing list. We will email around a link after this session if you're registered, and we'll also send you a link to this conversation if you want to revisit any of the things we've talked about today. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a good rest of the day and enjoy the rest of the Tallinn Film Festival.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.